had a thought, I know, shocker, about Dead Domain's videos. I know that a good portion of my viewers watch Dead Domain, and I watch some of their content sometimes. Particularly, I watched their 2 videos about infiltrating CPAC. It's a 2-part thing. The first one is like an hour and a half. The second one is like almost 2 hours long. Love Dead Domain. They're super cool. I was, watching and listening to those videos. One of the things that I really, really noticed that stood out to me a lot was that several people who Dead Domain engaged in conversation or who engaged them in conversation were talking about feeling like estranged from their kids and, not having as many friends anymore type of thing. And as annoying as it is, and as much as I don't want to foist this responsibility onto marginalized and oppressed people, I think for our own sake, it's important to remember that these people are being abused. Now, they are also perpetuating abuses. It's possible for victims to become perpetrators, especially if they're being manipulated into serving the manipulator's will, right? These people are vulnerable. They're old. Their kids are already not spending very much time with them because they're adults and they have their own children, right? So, these people aren't in community with people, and they're being sold a narrative that, oh, everything is so scary. These immigrants, these black people, these transgenders are going to ruin the country, and China's going to take over everything, and then Russia's going to bomb us. And they've been fed this narrative of fear, and then they're told, you can only trust Mr. Trump. Like, you can only trust us. Everything else is fake news. So they're being deliberately isolated. There's a reason why these people's kids don't want to talk to them anymore, and it's because it's a tactic of isolation. That's like the abuser's #1 go-to move. If you're enjoying this video, hit the like button, maybe subscribe, hit all notifications if you want. Feel free to check out the links in the description. You might find some merch you like, or you can hit up the Patreon to support the content and find free stuff. So as much as it's awful to have to extend empathy to people who you view as like attacking your existence, I think most of these folks, the reason why you can convince a Republican by making friends with them is because the problem that they're having is a lack of connection. So if we keep going, you're evil, I can't believe you would say this or whatever, like if you keep demonizing them, these lonely old people, they're just gonna go back to the community that they were already in. It's like that. I see this post go around about religion sometimes that's like, what is the point of religious proselytizing if it doesn't really work? And the response was, because the point of religious proselytizing is not to convert you. The point of religious proselytizing is for that religious person to try to convert you, to be rejected, and then to return to the church to get love bombed. That's the purpose, in this person's view, of religious proselytizing. So, in a similar way, the conservative tries to engage a conversation with their liberal children, and their liberal kids are like, this is so stupid. I can't believe you're still watching Fox News. I told you to stop watching that shit. And then they go and they talk to their friends. They go hear their pain being validated by right-wingers. Your kids just don't respect you, whatever. Like, there's this whole system built in where you get validation when you come back. You're like, my kid really pushed back on my beliefs, but I know that we're right. I'm going to go back to this conservative group and be told how brave I am for standing up to their satanic arguments or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think that we just don't spend enough time really considering why a person becomes this kind of Republican. How did you go from being like, I want there to be lower taxes, to I hate these immigrants, and then furthering on to like, and also I hate all these other groups of people? That phenomenon is worth not just acknowledging, but studying and then incorporating into our tactics. You can't just write off an entire swath of people because they're too stupid or whatever. That's the point of this advocacy and of connection and building community, is like, I'm going to start a community garden, and like, Kansas is kind of hit or miss. with whether you're going to meet people who are liberal. There's several very big liberal cities here. Or if you're going to meet some people who are like rough around the edges or rednecky or what have you. And you have to exist in the world with those people. You don't have the option to just, oh, we just can't live with these people. You have to. Even if you could move out of the country, you still live in the world with these people. You still share like oxygen with these people. You share a global network of natural resources with these people. Maybe it's too hard to do with your own family because they're heavily invested in a way, and they might view you as just some dumb kid that they raised, whatever, I'm not saying go put yourself in a situation of conflict all the time, but I'm just saying, even if you don't go out there and talk to conservatives compassionately, and I don't expect you to do that, I think that for your own well-being, you should be mindful to have empathy and compassion for people who've been sucked into a cult, who've been duped. People who are members of a cult are vulnerable people who are easily influenced, and that's not their fault. So the thing is to, just for your own internal well-being, not being angry at people who ultimately kind of don't have a lot of control over what's happening to them. Yeah, and obviously I don't want to suggest that you should compromise your safety. Again, I'm not even saying that you need to engage with these people, but that keeping that in mind, that they only have so much control over the narrative that they've been fed. If they were not equipped with the skills to know how to properly research, how to properly identify sources. Listen, we are talking about a group of people who will lose all of their retirement money to scams, where people call and pretend oh, I'm your long lost son or whatever. You got to send me money to blah, blah, blah. These are old people who are vulnerable. And the way that scammers get them is by faking personal connection. And that's how the Conservative Party is scamming them, is by faking personal connection and faking this idea of power. Because I'm an only child, I keep in contact with my mom a lot. So the clash of generations thing is not so extreme, but she is still fairly boomer brained, and it still takes me back sometimes just how much intensely predatory right-wing shit is out there designed solely to suck older people in. Yeah, if you're not maintaining regular contact with your family members who are older, they are vulnerable to this. They will get sucked into this. Frankly, if I hadn't just decided that it wasn't worth talking to my grandparents about my gender transition and the fact that I've been consistent with my gender for 15 years, maybe if I hadn't dipped out completely assuming that they were a lost cause, then they would have accepted my younger sibling who came out as trans, I'm not saying it was wrong for me as a 15-year-old to be I'm not going to even bother talking to these people at all. But it does mean that my family has potentially lost people who might have otherwise been supportive, And I'm, again, not saying that the onus was on me to do anything different either, but it's the fact. The fact is that 15 years ago, we didn't have all this hatred and whatever. And that if they had had a positive relationship with a trans person who could answer their questions throughout that time, then when this whole hullabaloo came up, they might not have been as easily sucked into it. So we just all have to make our choices about where we spend our energy and acknowledge that, you have to live in a world with these people. We have to find some way to hopefully get them on side. These people feel powerless and unheard. That's why they're so easily duped by the likes of con men like Trump. He says oh, I'm doing this for you. And then they believe him. Yeah. Incels who hate women are lonely. They're being taken advantage of. Exactly. So yeah, I'm just saying, just keep in mind that it's not good for you to hate people who are just being manipulated. You don't have to do anything with that knowledge except hopefully find more peace in yourself. That's all. Corpse Candy says, I turned my mom from a conservative into a socialist / borderline communist, though it took a lot of time, years. Now she's firmly left and LGBT positive. It can be done. It took years for me to become whatever socialist, communist, and then now I would consider myself probably closer to anarchist as far as perfect ideals go. And it took years for me to develop to that point. Even as someone who is specifically open to those ideas, I have been paying attention and watching myself be radicalized. I've been aware that I'm being radicalized as it's happening, but it did still take years for me to get where I am. I try to offer casual talk and discussion, and I have had some success with that, but only in person. Internet is toxic for this. Yeah, I don't really think that changing people's minds over the internet is like a thing that you should try to do. It just doesn't seem super effective. Much love to my patrons, especially Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Michelle Frateroli, Amanda B., Wellington Marcus, Michelle Winter, Danielle McDonald, DZXN, Suzanne Maynard, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Jamie Jam, Pasnell Infinity, Nova, Sojo, Elizabeth Bartell, Ella V. Nobody, Kevin Young, Sarah A., Athiet, Celeste, Desi Quiche, Liam Hodgson, and Mr. Atheist.